In this video, I'm going to show you a powerful automation that automatically creates full blog posts with internal linking, high quality Flux One images, and a relevant YouTube video. The posts are very well formatted and they're uploaded directly to WordPress at the end of the process. All you have to do is enter in a topic and the automation will take care of the rest. And by the way, if you want to import this blueprint at the click of a button, then check out the link in the description to our community where you can get all of our templates, including the one in this video. This is a simplified version of our previous blog post automations, which built out the articles section by section. Those automations are very good at creating highly customized, longer blog posts with lots of different media items. But this simpler flow is faster, cheaper, and easier to implement in your workflows. This automation can also scrape your website's sitemap directly to grab internal links. After it uploads the articles to WordPress, it drafts a bunch of text for different social networks. You can then review this text, and once you've changed the status to push to socials, the automation will then auto-post those to as many social networks as you want. We have a simple Airtable base here for the article title as the first column. Then we have instructions, which are optional. You can add these in to further guide where you want the article to go. We have a bunch of different article statuses here to track where we are within the process. You can run this automation in two modes. The first one is where you get it to create the article outline before writing the article. So you can change the status to ready for outline, and then the automation will pick up that record, go through this first stage in the router, which is ready for outline. Then we'll call Perplexity, which has real-time access to the live web. It will then ask it for key points, keywords, insights, and sources for that particular topic. And then we'll call Anthropic Claude to generate an outline based on that. Our initial blog post systems used OpenAI's GPT-4o, which is what ChatGPT used, but we got better results using Anthropic's Claude. So we're using Claude 3.5 Sonnet in this automation. After it's created an outline, then it updates the Airtable record. As you can see here, it's come up with a bunch of interesting facts and insights for the article that it got from searching the live web. If you want, you can go and add a bunch of other sections or update or edit this outline before you go to the next section. And while many people will want to get the outline first and edit it before generating the article, you do not have to do that. You can skip this process entirely and move the status directly to ready for article generation once you've added in a title. So it will grab that outline and all the data, but you will not need to review it before it automatically creates the article. Once you've added a title and moved to the ready for article generation status, you go through the second phase of the workflow, which is the longest part of this automation. First off, after we get the record, we're setting multiple variables. The first one is this model name. And because we're using Claude 3.5 Sonnet so many times throughout this automation, you see so many Anthropic modules here. We can hard code the actual model name we're going to use. And then once Anthropic bring out some newer models, we can just update that in one place. So we're setting the variable here. Variable name is model name. And then we're mapping it up here. So as you see, that model name is 3.5 Sonnet. Secondly, you add your website root URL in here. So I'm using a test website here. And then we move to this stage if we have the status of ready for article generation. The first thing we do is we get the sitemap. In this case, we're getting the XML sitemap for your website. If you run WordPress, you probably have one on your site. There are a few different URLs, but if you add sitemap.xml or I think wp_sitemap.xml, you should find it. I believe it's now included by default on WordPress. And if you have a plugin such as Yoast SEO or Rank Math, they'll generate their own XML sitemaps. I'm using Yoast SEO on this sitemap. So when I go to sitemap XML, I'll just click on Post Sitemap and I can see a big bunch of example articles here. What the automation does, it grabs this entire list. So it gets that sitemap. Then in this section, we're using join and map functions to get all of the URLs. It's not fully necessary to do this, but by extracting just the URLs, it means we're using less tokens in the next section. In this automation, we're getting AI to choose 3 relevant URLs based on our topic. So we're just adding in an Anthropic Claude module. We've added in a user role. And then under text, we have pick up to 3 URLs from the URLs list that are most relevant for the following topic. And then we're injecting in the title of the article. And then we're passing in the URLs that we gathered from this. Then we're asking to only respond with the chosen URLs separated by new lines. Ideally, this module will communicate with Claude, and then we'll use AI to extract a list of 3 URLs that we can use in the next section. We'll explain later in the workflow of how it actually incorporates these into the text. This first link was to an article on the impact of AI automation on employee productivity. This one was how AI automation can help you achieve work-life balance. And this one was the rise of AI, what does it mean for the workforce? So you can see from this example, the AI picked 3 very relevant URLs for the article. And by the way, if there are issues with trying to get the sitemap scraping set up for your website in this automation, we have a separate version of this automation where you manually define the sitemap links here. That version is within our community, but just at a high level, we have a separate table within our WordPress base where you just have one single record and you can just copy and paste in a bunch of different URLs from your website into this. Then every time it goes through the automation, it goes and grabs that record and then adds that directly in to this prompt. So if you want a more simplified version, then you could do that instead. Now we move on to the router. So if we have created an outline previously, then this article outline on the right will be populated. If it is populated, then we set this variable of article outline to the value of that directly from Airtable. If the article outline is not populated, it will go through the same process as we did earlier on, except do it here, where it calls Perplexity, gets it to create a summary of facts and figures and key points and so on. And then this will create the prompt. Again, this is the same as up here. So you see in either case, we're populating this article outline variable, and then we'll be using that later on in the process. When it's finished going through either of these, then it's going to get that article outline. And by the way, very importantly, the filter for these is if trim article outline optional does not exist. So if the article does not exist, trim will get rid of white space from the start and the end of that field, which is here. So even if you add a few extra spaces, it will remove those. And then for the outline is populated, it's where the article does exist. So where the trim article outline exists. It's only ever going to go through one of those, and it will populate this article outline variable. So then when we finally go through this stage to continue the workflow, we'll then get that article outline variable and then use that when we're creating the article. Then we have another Claude module here, which extracts the source. So we have a user role, type text. You will be given an article to analyze. Your task is to extract the names of companies or organizations and so on. So we're then providing the article outline directly into that. Then it's going to extract those sources. Later on in the process, we'll add those to the very end of the article. Before we generate the article, we need to get the media that we're going to include within the content of that article. So we're going to get an image from Flux One, and we're going to get a relevant YouTube video. In this example, the image will be the one that's placed here. So that's a realistic image from Flux One, and it's going to pick a YouTube video from the Google search results. Here I'm calling Claude again with an image prompt helper. I've gone through this in a bunch of different videos before. Check out the link in the description where I'm going through the previous blogging scenarios where I explain that in more detail. But at a high level, what we're doing is we're getting the article title and we're using Claude to try and classify that main prompt into something a bit more basic. So we're just asking, what is the main topic of the following? And we have the title. So we have, is remote work good for employees? And this will create a simplified version of that we'll then pass in to the image model. This is particularly good for very long blog post titles. If you have a long blog post title with a number and a year and so on, if you pass that to an image model, it might start messing up the image and trying to add in a bunch of extra text and numbers into the image that might not be required. We find that by just simplifying the image prompt that we're going to pass in to Flux One, you'll get a more reliable image. How do we get this kind of image and get that into WordPress? We're going to use a service called fal.ai. You can click Get Started at the top and log in from there. You can alternatively use the Black Forest Labs API directly or the replicate.com service. I'm using fal.ai here. You get free credit when you sign up, and it's pretty easy to use. So just go to API keys at the top here. You click Add Key at the top right, and then copy out the key that you get. And then you add in the HTTP module within make.com and add in the URL. This is fal.run, and we're using the Flux Pro endpoint for this. The method is post, and you add in a header. So we have the authorization, and then header is key space. And then copy in that API key that you got from fal.ai. Body type of raw, content of JSON. And then we have a horrible set of nested replace statements. So there is a shortcoming in make.com, which is that there is no internal function to escape JSON text. which means that if we have certain characters within our text, then it can cause errors when we're sending JSON text like this. The request for this is actually very simple. It's just that we have all of these replace statements, which is just removing special characters from the text. This is using the text response from this image prompt helper that we had previously, which is this remote work policies text. So we're passing that in, and then we're parsing that response. And the last time that was ren, it generated this response. So it generated the actual URL and the width and height of the image and the content type. And we're using this get a file module within Make to actually get the data for that file. And we're selecting this. So you can just go down here and then select URL, then you see it like that. When we get that content of the image, then we have the actual file that we can upload directly to WordPress. You select the WordPress upload image module from the WordPress app within make.com, create a media item, and select your connection. If you do not have a connection, then select add and check out the link in the description where I explain how to create a WordPress connection within Make. Make has this really nice feature which automatically maps the previous file that it got. So you could select HTTP, get a file, and this would automatically map that. But that would be too easy, right? Unfortunately, there's a quirk with the upload image module within Make. If you select get a file, and if you have the same file name, you can start overwriting images within WordPress, which you definitely do not want. So it's better to select map, manually map the data from this previous section here, and then select a file name. And then when you add the file name, add something unique to the end of the file. So this here is again that horrible list of replace statements, but it's just this text response. So the file name will just be something like remote work policies for employment here. It's going to have hyphen and then a timestamp at the very end and .jpg. That does complicate things a little bit, but it's going to stop overriding of images on your website, which you really just do not want. And then press OK. Now we have the image uploaded. It's just a standalone media item on your WordPress website. In the write article prompt later on, we're going to get it to input that into the article. But before we do that, we have these two sections, which is to get the YouTube SERPs. Here we're using the Data for SEO API, which is a really powerful service. And we're going to use this to do a Google search for the article title, and then it adds youtube.com to the end of the search. So programmatically, it's going to do something like this. We have the title for the article and youtube.com at the very end. Then it's going to pick the first one from this list. So how to do this? You right-click add a module and select HTTP. You're going to make a request and add in the URL as you see it here. We're selecting the Google organic results. We have the post method, body type of raw, and content type of JSON. And you have the request content in this exact format. For example, we're searching the United States, searching google.com, and here is the article title and youtube.com at the very end. We want to parse response, and very importantly, at the very bottom, click Show Advanced Settings and add in your username and password for Data for SEO. When you log in, just click API Access on the left, and then your API password should show up. If it does not, then click Send by Email on the right. Then add that in as your username and password at the very bottom once you've clicked Show Advanced Settings. After that, we have this call to Claude again, where we have a user role and text, and you are an assistant that will return the first YouTube video URL that you find in the following text. And we have this XML indicator along with two internal make functions. So the response from Data for SEO is in this structured format, and we're using these two tools of map and join to basically just get a list of URLs from that. So you see the URLs are here. I explained how this works in a bit more detail in our previous blogging videos, but at a high level, we're getting each of the URLs from the list of results. We're joining all those together into one string. We have a system prompt of you will only respond with either a URL or a blank response. When this is done, we should have one image uploaded to WordPress and one valid YouTube URL. And then we have the most important module of this entire automation, which is to write the article. We have a user role here and text. So this particular prompt is quite long. There's a lot going on here. And initially I was a little bit worried that Claude would not actually follow all the instructions. But from testing this automation, Claude 3.5 Sonnet is doing this very well. What we have is you will be provided an article brief below. Write an article based on it. For the introduction, you will create an introduction and key takeaway section for the article based on the provided brief. So that's talking about this. We have our introduction text and we have our key takeaway section here. And quite a nice part of this is that we have these if statements. So if you have provided a tone of voice, in this section here, it will inject that into the prompt. So if tone of voice, so that's really saying if tone of voice exists or if there is anything within that field, then it's going to add in this into the prompt right in a tone of voice, tone of voice. If there's nothing there, it will respond with this section here, which is blank. And the same applies to the keywords. If you've added in keywords like we've done for this first article, then it will ask it to add those in naturally within the text. So if keywords, include each of the following keywords exactly as they're written at least once naturally within the text. After that, we're asking it to write a concise 2-sentence introduction in NLP-friendly format, giving a high-level perspective on the topic. It should contain some high-level and relevant information based on the article rather than generic information about the topic. It should specifically address the following topic. So that is a focused prompt to try and get this to be on point and not, explain what remote work is or something incredibly generic like that. Then add a key takeaways section after the introduction paragraph, add a key takeaways heading and an unordered list with the important key takeaways. So this is an unordered list here, and we have the heading like it asks. There should be a maximum of 5 bullet points in your key takeaway section with no sub-bullet points. Bold 1 or 2 important words per bullet point using the strong tag. As you see here, it does not actually follow that fully, and it did bold more than 2 in this case, but actually that worked out well in this case. And this is how we then inject the YouTube video into it. So if this text response, so this is the video URL text response, so if that contains a YouTube URL, then you must add in that exact HTML, so paragraph tag, and then that text response. So that text response is the YouTube URL. So that on the right-hand side is a YouTube URL that it got from grabbing the data from Data for SEO, and then it parsed that. So you can see that YouTube video URL here. Then it's getting us to do that after the key takeaway section. So that's exactly what we see here. From then on, we're getting it to write the remaining sections of the article based on the provided brief. Each section should start with a H2 tag. So this is a H2 tag in HTML, standing for heading 2. And then you must enter the following image with image tag after the first section. So after this first section, it's then going to add in that image. And that image is the image that we uploaded here. And this is the exact code that we need to add that in for it to render properly on the page. Then we have some more prompting of include list items where necessary to demonstrate your points, but write a line of text to introduce the bullet points when doing so. Now, it does not always do this, but in one of the other examples of articles that it outputted, it generated these bullet points like that. So from then on, you can pause the video if you want to look at some more of this in detail, but we have another prompting about the sourcing, then some more prompting to try and focus the writing. Again, some more focused parts about using contractions in your writing. Do not start consecutive sentences or paragraphs of the same word, and so on. Keep your sentences short. Use the active voice. Do not start with a welcome. Do not start with a question. All of these are prompts that we put together from a lot of testing of language models and from generating a lot of different articles. I also have a section here of do not return in Markdown. We want this to return in HTML so that that will then upload correctly to WordPress. Then we have a list of words that we're asking it to not include. You can update this if you want, but some of these are real kind of dead giveaways and overused in language models. So we've added that in as well. This kind of helps humanize the output a little bit more. I have a section here where I'm asking it to not include the sources section at the end because we're going to be adding that ourselves later on. And in here, we have XML tags, and Anthropic Claude is very good at being able to recognize these kind of tags. So if you're providing some data or an example or specific information you wanted to reference, so just add in the XML tags like you see it here. We have starting tag of topic and an ending tag. You can add in whatever text you want here, but it just helps Claude be able to delimit what you're asking it to do. So we're adding in the title from Airtable and then the article brief. And this is the variable article outline from earlier back here. And here's a section about including internal links. Include the following internal links naturally within the text, with a maximum of 1 occurrence per link in the internal links. Each should be a valid A, so that's a HTML link, valid A HTML link with natural anchor text of between 1 to 6 words that flows within the text. The SRC should be the URL within the internal links data. So the SRC is actually the link to the page. And the text response, if you go all the way down there, is the result from this pick internal links. So it is from this one here, where we got it to pick up to 3 URLs from that big sitemap list. Then finally, at the very end, you must bold important words throughout the article with strong tags between 1 to 5 words per paragraph. You must respond in HTML format. That's a really important last piece. And finally, we have a really important last part of this, which is to pre-fill your response. We're adding this assistant role and we're starting it with a P tag. What that means is that we are essentially starting Claude's response on behalf of it. We're doing this because Claude very, very often responds back with really unhelpful, way too friendly preamble, like here is your article, or here is the generated article for you. And we don't want that in our automations. So this is a way of trying to focus its output. We're really saying the next character that you start with should be after this particular P tag. If you want to learn more about that, then check out the link in the description where I've gone through that in more detail. Once that's done, we generate a featured image. This follows the exact same process as generating our Flux1 image earlier on. We get the file, the exact same process again, and then again, we upload the image. Finally, we add in the create a post module for the WordPress app within Make. We add in the title from the Airtable base. So this is the article title. And then the content of that article, the first part will be the overall text response from the main article text. This is the result of the write article module. And earlier in the workflow, we extracted the sources from the outline, and then we're adding those at the very end as well. Again, you might be wondering, why are we adding in all of these replace statements? I found that Claude was sometimes responding with some unnecessary tags that we don't want, including these article and div tags. So I'm just doing some manual filtering of those to get rid of it from the output. It just makes it a bit cleaner when we're sending that to WordPress. We're going to leave the status as blank. By default, that will set it to status of draft within WordPress. So then you can go in and edit and publish that when you want to. Very important, at the very end, we're setting the media ID. That's the media ID that we got back when we uploaded the featured image. So that image that we uploaded here will reference at the very bottom of that, which is the featured media. When we've uploaded the post, we call this other module again, this WordPress get a post, and we're going to call that because we want to add this to this article link section here. So we can reference that quite easily later on. So when we're reviewing the articles and when we have a big list of them later on, then we can very easily click on this and look at the article. And finally, we create an article summary. And the purpose of this summary is that it's going to summarize all the main points of the article. And then we have a bunch of different prompts here: Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn, which then creates specific text for each of the social networks. This uses the same prompt as the previous Claude blogging system that we used, so just have a look at that video if you want to look at these in more detail. Then finally, at the very end, we update the status to article generated, so it will show up as article generated here. The article link is what we got from this WordPress get a post, and then we're uploading this featured image directly to here, as you see there, because that can then be used later on when we're pushing these to the social networks. And then we're selecting all of the relevant responses from Claude for the social media fields here of Facebook, Instagram, and so on. Then when that's done, we have a full record, including Facebook posts and social media posts that we can review. When you're ready, click push to socials. And when this automation runs, it will go through this section of publishing socials. Then it will get the image file and then upload the posts to each of the social networks. How you connect to each of the social networks varies quite a bit across each one. I've created a bunch of videos to explain each of them in detail, so check out the links in the description to have a look at those as well. If you want to import this blueprint to your own Make.com account, then check out the link in the description to our community, where you'll get access to all of our automations, including the one in this video. We also have a course to help you become a pro at using Make.com. We have weekly workshops where you can ask us questions in real time, and we have an active community where you can post questions there as well. So check out the links below. Thanks for watching.